Welcome to Things My Mother Forgot to Mention.
The podcast where we say everything our mothers didn't.
I'm Jan, a trauma therapist and author turned rogue storyteller, here to talk openly about the body, aging, and all the, wait, what? Moments of womanhood.
And I'm Patty, an online business and tech nerd whose purpose is to elevate the voices of women in our world and who doesn't believe in taboo topics. Things My Mother Forgot to Mention is the podcast for every woman who's ever said, wait, why didn't anyone mention this to me?
Join Jan and Patty, two outspoken, curious, outrageous women, as they dive headfirst into a messy, magical, and often WTF realities of aging, health, and quite simply being a woman.
From rogue chin hairs and vaginal thinning
to mental health, perimenopause, and scalp cancer. Yes, really.
Nothing is off limits. It's funny, it's raw, it's real talk your mother definitely skipped.
Let's get into it.
Hello, Jan.
Hey, Patty. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing actually quite good today. I'm very excited about our guest. I have to say, Kathleen, or Kathy, as I've known her for 43 years, holy cow, is going to be joining us, and I'm really excited about interviewing her. So, and how about you?
Exciting. Yeah, I'm good. It's early for me. We're recording this at an early for Patty time, but I'm here for it. It's fall, which is my favorite season, so I'm excited for that. And it's rainy outside, which makes me extra happy. So I'm doing pretty okay.
Good.
Feeling good. Yeah.
Good.
And I'm super excited too because Kathleen is going to talk with us about menopause. So Kathleen is our guest on menopause. And I'm going to read a little bit about her and then we'll welcome her in. So Kathleen Sachs is the second oldest, second daughter in a family of 9 children. And that explains everything about her. Her life has been about being of service to others, whether it's her career as a financial planner, her time in town government, or her years as a hospice volunteer doing pet therapy visits. She has experienced, as she thinks most women have, limits being placed on her simply because she is female, from overprotected activities as a young child to being underestimated by men to whom she was doing a professional presentation. Her passion now is focused on encouraging women of all ages to use their voice and advocate for themselves, whether that is demanding effective medical care or taking time for self-care. I love everything about that. Kathleen sounds amazing. Welcome, Kathleen. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And it's always fun to hear someone else read your bio.
Yes.
I spent a lot of time thinking about what it is I wanted to say because I was limited on a number of words. The biggest challenge with being as old as I am is it's hard to condense everything.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to be here, and I was glad that Jan laughed at that line about being the second oldest, second daughter of a family of 9 explains everything about me, because Jen knows me well enough.
It does.
Yes, she knows that. That is true about me.
Yeah. And how do you two know each other? So you've known each other for 40 years, you said. So how did you
40
meet?
plus years. We met when we both chose to go to a workshop in those days called Actualizations, which was an intensive weekend workshop on personal effectiveness. And we took the original workshop together and then went on to do more workshops together and eventually go to work for that company together.
Oh, wow.
So a long time.
We got a great past together.
Yeah, we were both single at the time, and I'm pretty sure if you'd asked us, we would have said we're not going to get married. And yet, look what happened to us.
That's how I feel at this point. That would happen to me if I.
Right. And we aged, didn't we, Kathy?
We did indeed. Yes.
And the aging, I'll tell you, in this day and age, my mother never mentioned any of this when it comes down to what we've come through after being together for 42 years and our bodies. And that's where you're an expert in your own life.
Right. And part of the reason I mentioned, when I was thinking about what to say in my bio, part of the reason I mentioned my family history is so. My mom and dad got married as a young couple, and by the time they had been married 7 years, they had 5 kids.
Oh
Oh,
my.
wow.
I was the second. And so, under the heading of what my mother forgot to mention, pretty much anything that didn't have to do with the reality of day-to-day survival.
Mm.
And it is amazing that she survived and did what she did. She had a much harder life than I had. But when I was listening to your podcast earlier about coming of age. So briefly, I can tell you my experience with getting my period.
Yeah.
My sister, a year older than me. So she is 1 year and 3 days older than me. And I have a sister 11 months younger than me. That's how close we are.
Wow.
Referred to as
Whoa.
Irish twins. And then there's the boys. So anyway, my sister Evelyn got her period, but we were all late bloomers. She was 16. She was a sophomore in high school.
Oh,
I
wow.
was a freshman in high school. And a little while later, after she got hers, like months later, I got mine. And I remember saying to my mother, who was busy in the kitchen with, at that point, 9 children. And I said something like, I got my period. And she said to Evelyn, with whom I have never been close, take a Kotex, the pads that Jan referred to, take a Kotex and go in the bathroom and show your sister how to do it.
Mm.
And of course, I received all that attitude, right? Like,
Right.
this is annoying. It's, oh my God, one more thing to do. And
Mm.
my sister was also annoyed. She was often annoyed with me. But I think in perspective, she got to be queen for a day. She's the oldest girl. She's the first one to come of age. As Jan said earlier, not that we celebrated that, but at least it was a thing. And it lasted a couple months, and then along came the next pesky little sister. So from that perspective, I can understand that she was annoyed. But so my experience was, oh, great. I've made it to this thing. It's messy. It's icky. A lot of shame associated with anything sexual, bathroom related, bodily function.
Down there.
And down there. And I had to wear that thing Jan was talking about, a Kotex pad that was like this huge wad of paper towels with little tabs on either end. And you attached it to a belt around your waist that had really sharp little hooks.
Oof.
So you had to get this string through the hooks while your sister's bothering you, while the other 8 children are doing whatever they're doing. I mean, yeah.
Wow.
So, and it pretty much, that's how it went from there on.
And then that's just the beginning.
Right.
And that's just the beginning.
And now the ending.
Right. And so my mother and I did not, over the course of our lifetimes, did not have a lot of conversations about any of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And when she went through menopause, so to add to, could she be a role model for me? She was 40 when she got pregnant with her 9th kid.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, if you can imagine. We won't even get to the whole birth control. That would be another whole podcast. Anyway, so, she was still having babies. So not like she could actually understand all that stuff or talk to me about perimenopause or about any of that stuff. I do remember later in life when she had hot flashes, which were even more shameful then than they were for me and than they are now. Like, I like to think that's gotten better.
Yeah.
But all the women of that era, we're talking about the early 80s, wore polyester pantsuits. Do you know what I'm talking about, Patty? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Everybody wore polyester pantsuits with a nylon shell, a sleeveless shell, and a jacket so that you could whip off the jacket when you started to have a hot flash, right?
Oh.
That's why they were so popular. They were not that attractive. They were just functional. But that was pretty much it. So I know that's why she wore those outfits and she had a hot flash and she took off her jacket. But it's unlikely she would have even labeled it hot flash, right? That's how little any of that stuff was talked about.
Right.
And I left home. I went off to college when I was 17. So I wasn't close to her. I wasn't really getting a lot of that information from her anyway.
Yeah. So then what? Oh, go ahead.
So I want to go back to a comment that you said when we were off the air, when I was talking about my desire for women your age to have a different experience than what Jan and I experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And you made a comment about, so medical science keeps getting better. So 10 years from now, when I'm really in menopause, it will be better. And what I want to tell you is, if you are not already in perimenopause, you can be any minute now.
Oh,
For
yes, I
some
know.
women,
Yeah.
okay, so for some women, it starts in their mid 30s. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not about the destination of menopause. It's about your daily life now and how you get from here to there.
Mm.
So here's the other thing that I talk about now. Menopause is one day in your life. That's it. One day. It's the day that you have gone 365 days without a period. That's menopause.
And then
The
everything
rest
else
of
is
it,
post-menopause.
well, and for you, the more important is perimenopause.
Right.
So where I think, I think a lot of the suffering happens. And
Mm.
if Jan and I had had different treatment in our perimenopause, I think we would have less suffering now post-menopause.
Mm.
So everybody talks about menopause. It's one freaking day. That's it. My husband said to me one day, I'm like, when do you think you're going to like get over this menopause thing? Yeah. He's a guy.
Oh, Bob.
Yeah. I said, I'm pretty sure the day I die, but right.
Yeah. Yeah, you think it
So,
affects you, sir.
yeah. And actually, Mary Claire Haver, who's my new guru, who I talk about all the time, one of the many, if you go on her resources, one of the many links she has, which I sent to a friend of mine who's around your age, is a thing about perimenopause or menopause for men. Because this woman is going crazy. And every other time I talk to her, she wants to either murder her husband or divorce her husband. Now,
Mm.
I don't know if you have a husband, but Jan and I do on a
I do
regular
not.
basis. Okay. On a regular basis, we wish to either murder them or divorce them. That in itself is not extreme, but that every other phone call, she says that to me is because she is wacky as all get out with hormones.
Mm.
So anyway, I sent her that article because she won't read anything I'm sending her, but I'm
Yeah.
hoping she will at least give it to
Kathy,
her
do you,
husband.
do you remember when you and Linda met with me and I was going after my surgery and I had my kidney taken out and I was lost all this weight and I was pretty much had my head in my dish because I was crying and saying, I can't stand this. And it threw me into perimenopause and Linda was the one who referred me to Dr. Cohen and that changed my life. You guys did because I was ready to like kill myself. I
Right,
couldn't take it. Do you
Mm.
right.
remember that? That was a
Yes.
fateful moment when you saved my life.
And that is the perfect example of why we're doing what we're doing,
Yeah.
right? Jan and I are blessed to know this woman, Linda, who is, I would call her alternative. Is that a fair word,
Yes,
Jan?
yes,
She's different from us in a lovely way. But Linda, being who she is, would know resources that Jan and I would not.
right.
Right?
Mm.
Jan and I are more straight ahead Western medical, and Linda is off to the side. So that was a moment in time that changed Jan's life because we had a friend named Linda.
Mm.
What about all those women who don't have a friend like Linda? What
Yeah.
about all those women who won't talk about it? What about all those women who don't know that their thinning vaginal lining is not just them,
Right.
right? So you talk about shame. The other woman I follow, my other guru, is a woman named Brene Brown. Are you at all
Yes.
familiar? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Very. Yeah.
So her first book, which is not her bestseller, is called I Thought It Was Just Me, but
Mm.
it isn't. It's all about shame. It's why it never got to be that popular. Who wants to read a whole book about shame? Um, I use it because I run
Do.
book groups, and that's one of the books we have read. But anyway, so I thought it was just me. So when my when I started to have pain during intercourse, when I started to have frequent yeast infections, when I started to have frequent urinary tract infections, remember that childhood shame about bodily functions?
Right.
I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to tell my husband. He's a guy. I don't want to tell my
Mm.
husband it hurts when he penetrates because guys don't get that concept, right?
Right.
They can't, right? I don't really want to talk to anybody else about it. I don't want to say to my friends, how's your vagina,
Right.
right? I mean, now I do. Now Jan and I do because When you get bodily functions is all you talk about, right, Jan? We get together still with our friend Linda, and Jan's had back surgery, I had knee surgery, now I've had a cardiac event, Linda's had breast cancer. That's what we talk about, but not when I was 55 and needed to talk about it, right? So um, so I suffered through perimenopause for 12 freaking years.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. And I thought in the world of life is fair because I suffered so much and everyone ignored me and no one offered me any treatment. And this is when hormone treatment had already come and gone. The ridiculous, untrue story that it gave you cancer, right?
Right.
So that wasn't even an option. So I went through all that suffering. So I thought in my little brain, well, when I get to menopause, I'm just going to slide gracefully into menopause because I've already suffered so much. Not true. I crashed after 12 years. I crashed into menopause. I missed a shift at work and denied it when they confronted me at work about it. I almost set my kitchen on fire and I couldn't stop crying.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to see my gynecologist I had been seeing for years, and I chose a woman gynecologist because in my imagination, she would be more sympathetic, right? So at one point I say to her, okay, my periods are all over the place. My period cycle ranges from 18 days to 36 days. So I never know when I'm going to get my period. My period lasts 5 days. So if I'm having an 18-day cycle, I am hormonal every single day. And her response was, well, that's not pathological. Excellent. I wasn't aiming for pathological. What I was aiming for was some sympathy. Like, well, that must suck. How do you manage your life? Do you carry pads around all the time? Right?
Mm-hmm. And tissue for your tears.
So, and we had talked about as I was going through perimenopause. So I had mysterious joint pains that could not be explained anyway. I've always had cold hands and feet. I went through a year where my feet would suddenly get so hot. When I was in bed with my husband, he wouldn't let me touch his feet. So hot. No explanation. So they run tests for inflammation, diseases like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. It's called your SED rate. My SED rate was normal, and they said, so there's nothing we can do. And here's the important thing, Patty. No one ever mentioned the phrase perimenopause.
Right.
No one even told me that's what was happening, right? Much less offered me treatment. But because I was in my feminist days, I kept saying to my gynecologist, I'm not going on hormone therapy. Men have medicalized menopause. It's a natural process, yada, yada, yada. I am not going on hormone.
Wait a minute. Excuse me for interrupting. You really thought that? I didn't know that you were really against hormone HRT.
I
Because
was then.
I was on it for almost 18 years after that incident when I was in the restaurant with you and Linda. That's amazing. So you were like, no, I'm not doing this. I didn't know
For
that.
me, I didn't have a problem with other people doing it, but because of my perspective, which is men have just invented this, and men are the ones who've made the drugs, and the
I
drugs
see.
then, Jan, were female horses pee,
Yeah, urine,
right,
Premarin.
right, all that stuff. And so I had said over the years to my gynecologist, I'm not going to go on hormone therapy. I'm not going to go on hormone therapy. Okay, fine. So I crash into menopause. I have an appointment with her, and she says, I know you've said all along, Kathleen, that you don't want to go on hormones, but what's the quality of your life? And I burst into tears in her office.
Yep.
Like, okay, we might need to do something about that.
Yep.
This was after I almost set my kitchen on fire. So, because I lost any ability to focus, right? So I'm heating a pan of oil because I'm going to do something like fry zucchini, like not deep fry, right? But I decided to go down the hall to check an email on my computer. And I come back and the oil's on fire. So I grab the pan and I run outside and stand in my driveway where it's raining. And I have no freaking idea what to do with this pan of burning oil while standing in my driveway. That's the kind of mental function I'm talking about. So I went on hormone therapy and immediately felt better.
Yeah.
And my original plan was to stay on it for a year or so, but a year in, my mother had developed dementia, and I was in conflict with my siblings about how to manage that. And so I was still a mess. And so I ended up staying on it for 2 or 3 years, and then I went off it. And it was more the emotional ups and downs and the inability to concentrate. That was the worst part of it. Yes, I lost my ability to sleep through the night. Yes, I had night sweats. Yes, I have hot flashes, but none of those were as disabling as the inability to focus and to concentrate
Mhm.
or to stay in any one mood for more than 10 minutes at a time.
Wow.
So,
So Kathy,
so
what
anyway, so go ahead.
do you mind if I ask you if we have a couple questions here? What
Sure.
HRT were you taking?
I have no
Was
idea.
it made at a formulary pharmacy and you took like
No.
progesterone and estrogen, or what was it
Yes,
that they
it
gave
was
you?
that I remember. I did. It was a combination, but it was not made a formula. It was just whatever she gave me that I went to CVS and picked up. It was just a traditional. It was a traditional formula.
Oh, I see. So
If
you
that
went
if that makes any sense. Yeah,
Mhm.
nothing individualized. Not the what's the word you talk about? Biometrics or bio.
Biodynamic. So what
Yeah,
they do
it's
is
not.
they either
Yeah,
test you with your blood or your saliva, and
yeah,
they prescribe it according to the strength you need, not
right,
like, a
right,
pregnant horse's urine.
right. So this was 19 years ago. And as I said at the time, I was just doing straight ahead Western medicine. So whatever script she wrote me, I went to
Hmm.
CVS and picked it up. So interesting, talking about family history. So my sister, a year younger than me, she and she and I are similar in that neither of us, not only did we not have children, neither of us ever got pregnant. So from a point of view of what does that mean about your body and hormones and all that kind of stuff, we were similar in that sense.
Mm.
She had vicious hot flashes. And at the time, she was working as an FBI agent in downtown Boston, wearing a suit
Oof.
and working in a bullpen of men,
Oh
right? So
gosh.
30 men, two
Mm.
women. She was the only one in perimenopause, menopause, and she had vicious hot flashes. And so that is part of the reason she went on hormone therapy, which she did for a year, and she went off it, and her hot flashes went away and have pretty much not come back.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
nice. Nice.
So, but talk about studies they've done or not done, right? Again, controlled by men, funded by men, right? Funded by Congress, which is men.
Yeah.
The studies they did on women who've never been pregnant and how they deal with perimenopause, hormones, menopause, they would study groups of nuns.
Oh.
Because where else would you find a group of women who've never been pregnant,
Hmm.
right? So my lifestyle, as Jan knows, is nothing like a nun, right? So the studies about them and their bodies was
Right.
really not that relevant to my
Right.
body. And
Exactly.
and that was part of it as I talked to my gynecologist, right? She was a gynecologist she was an OBGYN, right? So
Yeah.
she delivered babies and she did gynecology. She did both. So the great majority of her patients were pregnant or
Mm.
had not been pregnant. And I had never been pregnant.
Hmm.
And so it's yet another unknown, right?
Right.
And again, there wasn't research on that then.
Yeah, it's
So,
interesting because I was thinking, Patty, you told me that you think you're in perimenopause, but you don't know because your IUD,
I have an
which I had never heard
IUD.
of
It's
this before,
hormonal. Yeah.
is a hormone. It has hormones in it, so it must have progesterone,
oh,
estrogen in
It's
it,
progesterone. Yeah.
progesterone, and it stops your period.
Yeah. I
So,
have no
so then you
periods.
don't know
Yeah.
when or if it's happening, right?
I don't, although as you were talking, I've had some emotional roller coaster. Like I burst into tears yesterday.
Oh,
And then a few days or last week I was really irritable. Like I'd wanted like yeah, I was pretty much wanting to yell at my cats just for sitting next to me. So
There you go.
Whether or
That's
not
a good
that's that,
example.
but that's what I
Yeah.
was thinking as you were talking, is I was like, oh, like, because I think in my head I'm expecting more physical things, but that's right, mood, yeah, is a
And
thing.
so
So that could be a potential.
how long have you been using the hormonal IUD?
IUD, 3 years, I think.
And you're
And
in your mid 40s,
yeah, I'm 44. I'll be 45 in a few months or
right?
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
my periods have always been abnormal. I've always had a lot of weird period stuff, and I had some buildup, my uterine lining buildup, and there were starting to be some pre-cancer cells. So they
yeah.
cleaned it out, and that's when she's like, you need a hormonal IUD because that'll stop that from
Oh,
happening.
interesting.
And
Ah,
Okay.
so that's
interesting.
why that's the only reason I'm single
Mhm.
and, living like I'm closer to a nun than anything else at this point. So, so,
Back to the nuns in the conversation.
so I really only need it to
Okay,
keep that from happening. Yeah.
right. And so let me ask you a personal question.
Yeah.
That IUD also serves as birth control?
It does. Yeah.
Okay. But you're using it for the hormonal thing. Very interesting.
Correct. Yeah.
And Jen, when we were talking earlier about hormone therapy and my attitude about hormone therapy, I took the birth control pill for a while, which is of course hormones, right? It's just a
Yes.
different
Yeah.
stage of using hormones. Um, and I ended up having a tubal ligation 6 months after I got married because I didn't seem to be able to tolerate any kind of birth control.
Mhm.
So
Hmm.
at one point, I used a diaphragm. Patty,
Yeah.
do you even know what a diaphragm
I do.
is?
Hmm.
Okay. I used a diaphragm, had worse pain than other things. Turned out I was allergic to the spermicidal jelly you have to
Oh
put into
no.
I know.
Oh,
I don't even know how the doctor figured that out. So and then I think we tried the pill, but I had recurrent yeast infections and fungal infections.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
And I think I skipped the IUD phase. I can't remember why. And so by the time I got married and I knew I didn't want to have kids, and my husband agreed he didn't want to have kids, I'm like, I'm done with this. Let's just get this done.
yeah.
And I was fortunate that they didn't give me a hard time about that decision. I was 35 at the time, which at those days, that was relatively old for having babies.
Right.
And also I was married. So yeah, I don't remember if they actually like made my husband sign
So
an
you had
approval.
your
I
tubes
did.
tied, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
back in 1986.
Mm.
So yeah, so I've been spared having to deal with birth control all these years, which is good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so Patty, back to you and the possibility of perimenopause. Here's the thing: no one knows.
Right.
It is
Yeah.
so individualized, right?
Mhm.
It has to do with your health. So you already had what you called abnormal periods. So that means
Yeah.
something about your hormonal system is different from, we'll say, the mainstream, right? For
Right.
lack of a
Sure.
better word. I try
Yeah.
not to use the word normal, right? But
But yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
your system's already different. And so again, we don't know how that factors in.
Right.
But
Yeah.
what we do know about, hold on a second, I want to pull this up on my screen. Um, so what we do know about perimenopause, menopause, and estrogen, right? The new perspective on estrogen is it's everywhere in your body, right? So
Yes.
we have these things called receptors, like insulin receptors are a big deal.
Right.
They talk about on food plans now. Okay, so we have estrogen receptors. And so I'm going to read you this thing from Dr. Haver. It says, your brain, bones, skin, blood vessels, heart, bladder, liver, colon, salivary glands, reproductive organs, and more all rely on estrogen to tell them when to grow, repair, or defend themselves.
Wow.
Right?
Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that amazing? So at one point, I had a whole series of dry things:
Mm.
dry vagina, dry eyes, dry mouth, dry skin, and got tested again because I go to doctors. Got tested. There's a thing called Sjogren's syndrome, which I hope you never get. I didn't have that. And again, they were like, well, go to CVS and get eye drops and use a vaginal cream and yada, yada, yada. And that was yet another change in my body
Mhm.
probably related to estrogen levels.
Estrogen atrophy. Yep.
Right. But again, no one ever mentioned that. No one ever said I was in perimenopause,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I tried when I went through, so I remember I was saying this morning to the group of women I was talking about. I remember my gynecologist saying to me, the same one, she said to me, well, I was complaining about painful intercourse. And she said, well, you have vaginal atrophy. And I started laughing and said, are you saying if I used it more, I would be in better shape? Right? Like your muscles atrophy if you break your leg, right?
Right,
Like,
right. Yeah.
dude, is that what we're talking about here? She was like, no, it just happens, right? So I tried lubricating creams. I tried beads. I tried put things you put in a day before, things you put in 3 days before, things you put in a minute before, all of which really helps the romance of the
Right.
moment.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I think I'm gonna have sex in 3 days. Let me prepare.
Yeah,
Right.
I wore an O-ring for a while,
Mhm.
which is I don't really know what it is, but it has estrogen in it, right? It's internal. It's like the
It's
diaphragm without
yeah,
the
it's an
without
ester.
the
It's called estring.
container.
Hmm?
Thank you. Um, so I wore that for a while. I mean, I tried because that's how I am. I tried everything, and of course, in the meantime, again, unbeknownst to me, my libido is dropping
Mm.
because my estrogen's dropping. But I'm so focused on the fact that it hurts when I have sex that I don't even really notice I don't want to have sex because,
Mm.
like, there's a problem. This is how I am in life, right? There's a problem. There must be a solution. Let me go see a doctor. I'm incredibly compliant. Let me do everything they say to do.
Right.
And it still hurts. But turns out I don't even really care about having sex, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Mm.
One thing I have to say, Kathy, in my little GSM story about this is something that is new, which I had never heard of, which is DHEA. In fact, my naturopathic doctor that I use now, she said to take DHEA, which is, I'm going to try to say this word. It's called dihydropiandrosterone. And
Okay.
it's a hormone produced by the adrenal glands. It's a precursor to other hormones, including testosterone and estrogen. And it
Wow.
helps actually create testosterone, so desire again, and estrogen. And you can get it in pill form, just, over the counter,
Wow.
or I take it vaginally now. Did I tell you that? I'm not sure if I told you. I take that as a vaginal insert, and it's not estrogen. It creates testosterone and estrogen, which does
Interesting.
help, I have to say, with some like desire for being sexual, which which I really
Wow.
had lost. So
Wow.
they are coming, which is so exciting, is they are coming up with more exciting things. In fact, I was just making dinner last night and I heard on the nightly news that there's a drug for women with hot flashes, and it's some new drug that's out. And
Huh.
I'm thinking, thank God somebody is doing something about all this, which is
Women.
what you've been saying all along, Kathy.
Right. Right. And Patty, this is why we have hope for you.
Yeah.
This is why I keep saying this is all about you because Jan and I are chasing after, right?
Yeah.
We want
Yep.
you to be able to be proactive. We want you, when you go see a medical provider, for them to say, here's all this stuff. Here's Western medicine. Here's Eastern medicine. Here's
Right.
acupuncture. Here's chiropractic. Here's Chinese medicine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it's interesting because Jan and I have been talking about, GSM, which I can never remember the initials, but I'm looking at it. Yeah,
Genitourinary syndrome of menopause. Right.
right. I'm looking at it now on the screen. Again, Dr.
Right.
Mary Haber. So she describes this series of symptoms here, all of which I had. Vaginal dryness, burning irritation, painful sex, need to urinate frequently, recurrent urinary tract infections, low libido, clitoral atrophy, vaginal prolapse. And again, no one ever said that to me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've had recurrent UTIs for the last 15 years. Patty, you know what a UTI is? You know what we're talking
Yes.
about,
Yeah.
right? Have you yet experienced one?
I have not. No, my mother experiences them extremely frequently.
Okay, so you know what they are. And
Yeah.
I actually know a couple women who have made it through their whole lives, including being sexually active, and have not yet had a UTI. But I
Yeah,
can
I've
tell you
never had one for
that
some
is rare.
grateful reason. Yeah.
So I am now on, so this is an example of how things are changing, which is really good news. I am now on a protocol for UTIs. And as of August 20th, when I saw my new urologist, I can tell you that I went an entire year without a UTI, and that is the
Yay.
first time in more than 15 years.
Wow.
So when I saw another urologist who left the business because there's not that many female urologists around. Anyway, she said to me, "You are now in a class. You are now in a group called postmenopausal women who are prone to recurrent UTIs. It's a thing."
Hmm.
Okay. So again, it's not just me.
No.
It's not my imagination, right?
Yeah.
And for people who have them frequently, and this may well be true of your mom, we get hypersensitive to it, right? So I'll go to a point where I'll suddenly notice frequency, or I'll suddenly notice pain, like I'll pee and it really burns, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting a UTI.
Right.
Right.
And so that, of course, creates stress in my body, which adds to the whole UTI thing. Part of what's good now is they now have Azo is the famous company.
Right.
First, they came out with the over-the-counter Peridium, which is the drug you can take that stops the pain. It stops the spasm and turns your pee bright orange and stains your underwear, but it stops the pain. But Azo also now makes a self-test. So
Mm.
now when my body is reacting in such a way that I think I might have a UTI, I can take the self-test, and it measures two different things, and it will at least give me an indication in my mind of whether I should ride this out. So drink less caffeine, drink more water, try to relax, right? Try to do stress reducing things, or whether it's serious enough that I should go give a urine sample.
Right.
So the protocol from my doctor is um, don't go more than 3 hours without peeing ever. So that's a thing. If I'm
That's
on the
great.
road and if I'm on the road and I'm traveling, the other side of that is don't pee more than once an hour, because you just train your bladder to be overactive when you do that.
Mm.
Well, that's a good
Um,
one.
yeah, I use vaginal estrogen. The previous urologist, whose protocol was successful but not this successful, had me do it once a week. This doctor has me doing it twice a week. So you put it on yourself right on your urethra, to which I said to the first doctor, I'm not sure I know where that is. And she
That's
said,
great,
yeah.
Kathy.
And she said, she was not my favorite doctor, but she said, well, you just open your labia and it's right there. I'm like,
It's
all
down
right,
there.
fine. Down there. It's down below. So use that. And then what the new doctor added a year ago, which has been wildly successful, is a supplement, an over-the-counter supplement that most people have not heard of, called D-Manose, D-MANNOSE. Also made by Azo, that very same company. And she told me to use that instead of cranberries. So people talk about cranberries helping your
Yeah.
system. Um, so I have tried eating cranberries, drinking cranberry juice, et cetera, et cetera. It never worked for me. The Demonuse works.
That's great.
And what it does is make your urethra and that whole area less sticky, so that bacteria cannot stick to
Oh,
it.
Oh, interesting.
interesting.
And
Wow.
when I saw her, when I saw her in August, this is a newer one. She's been a urologist for 20 years. We talked about how things have changed for treatment for UTIs in her 20 years. And the estrogen, which she likes to use twice a week instead of once a week, is to make your vagina less welcoming to bacteria. And I'm
Mm.
like, well, that sounds good. So less welcoming. And then if they get through the welcome, less sticky, so that they don't turn into an actual infection, right? And the other part of being on this protocol is I have a standing order for a urine sample, and I have, the urine sample collection kits. So at any point, if I am sick, I don't have to wait and call the doctor. I can give a sample and take it to the lab and get it tested right away.
Oh,
Because
great.
here's the other part of it. They'll do an initial test that will say, yes, you've got, oh boy, yeah, you've got a lot of bacteria. We should put you on an antibiotic.
No.
What they don't know, and what doesn't work in my body, is just picking an antibiotic. So last year, when I had 3 UTIs back to back, I went 6 weeks with constant UTIs.
Oh.
They kept trying different antibiotics. So one, my body's extremely sensitive. So that's just me, like you and your periods, right? That's just me. The other part of it is bacteria is learning to be resistant to those kind of antibiotics, just like all the other ones that we hear of.
But Kathy,
So
didn't you end up getting from antibiotics a yeast infection?
Oh, yeah.
not this time. I have
But
in the past.
that's
But-
what happens.
That's
Right.
very
but-
common. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but let me finish the story. So the part about the urine sample is they do the immediate test, but here's the other part. They culture it, which takes 3 days, and that culturing gives them the answer to which antibiotic will work. But that means you're going 3 days without treatment, right? So the good news is there is pain medication, so you can survive it. Right? Azo, right. So I take over-the-counter Peridium to stop the pain so I can tolerate waiting the 3 days. So a year ago, when things were really bad, they put me on a drug that had worked 6 months earlier, because that's how often I was having them. But that drug no longer worked. So I got better, and a week later got sick again. They put me on a second one, kind of just picked one. Same thing, got better, a week later, sick again. And then the third time, they cultured it and they put me on yet another drug, which I had not taken before. And Jan, in answer to your question, I used to not be able to tolerate almost any antibiotic. I used to get, for me, not typically yeast infections, I would get intolerable explosive diarrhea. Like I would have to stay in the house. That's typically my reaction to antibiotics.
Mine
But
is
I am overall healthier now, and I can tolerate more things. I take a probiotic every day, but when I'm on an antibiotic, I up the probiotics I take and yogurt and all the stuff they talk about.
That's great. Well, that's
so anyway.
Go ahead.
That's a protocol. It's a thing, right? So do I have time to tell you a related story? Okay. Here's the short.
One more story.
Here's the short version of the story. This is relative to communication and do we know about this? And I said to Patty at one point, I talk to every woman everywhere I can about this. Every single time I have the opportunity to have this conversation. So when I went to the urologist's office, and the woman that was checking me in, who was delightful, said something to me about, and she was like, "Oh, I'm always hot or cold. My thermostat's broken." And I said, "Are you in perimenopause?" She said, "Yes, I am." I said, "You got to get this book." And I sent her a picture of the book. Like, that's what I mean about how often I talk about it. So anyway, I had surgery. We're going to skip all those details. Unexpectedly, they had to catheterize me after the surgery because my bladder was so full. It was at risk of bursting.
Oh, wow.
And so the nurse said to me, "Okay, we're going to do a catheter." And I was like, "Whoa, wait a second. I am prone to UTIs." I said to the nurse, "I'm in a class called postmenopausal women who are prone to frequent UTIs. You cannot just give me a catheter." She was like, "Well, we really need to." So anyway, she called in another nurse. They were very careful. They used extra betadine. I did not get an infection from it. But here's the funny part of the story. When she called in the other nurse, she said to me, "Kathleen, tell that nurse about the group you're in." That's what she said. Tell this nurse about the group you're in. And so I said, postmenopausal women who are prone to frequent UTIs. And I told the woman the story about Dimineuse, which of course, I don't recommend she do that without talking to a doctor, but it is sold over the counter. You don't need a prescription for it. And if you're already trying cranberries, then try the Dimineuse. So That's what I mean by I talk about this
All the
anywhere
time.
and everywhere I can.
The
And I
crazy
really
thing
try to
with
live, and other than my husband, I really try to live my life surrounded by women. So I get to have the conversation a lot.
Yeah, me too. The crazy thing with UTIs too, that I've learned from my mother the hard way is that especially as you get older, the symptoms of them are really intense and like hallucinations
Yep,
Ooh.
are a part of that. My mother,
yep,
one time my phone rings and it's 3 o'clock and my mom is in an assisted living place. Or I think at that point she was in rehab for one of her many surgeries. And so she calls, my phone rings at 3 a.m. It's my mother. She's just, and I'm terrified. And she's like, hello. And I was like, what? Hi? And she's like, what you doing? I'm like, I'm sleeping. What are you doing? And she's like, well, I was just seeing if you're gonna come and get me. And I was like, do you know where you are? And all these things. And then she'd call my brother a couple hours later and just fully hallucinating. She was talking to her lamp, thinking it was a person, full. And so we're
You're
terrified,
kidding.
thinking,
Wow.
oh, this is it. We're oh,
yep,
okay. What do we do? And it turns
yep,
out she had a UTI. And that happened
yep,
several times where she would be full
Wow.
on. She would talk to somebody behind her, thinking somebody was there, but nobody was there.
yep,
It was full on, but purely UTI. And that's actually very common, especially for older women who have UTIs, that they if they go untreated, that they
yep,
can become very strong hallucinations
Oh
as
right.
my.
well.
So it actually can cause hallucinations. It causes personality changes.
Mhm.
People are suddenly grouchy. So for here's a really sad thing. People who have dementia
Mm.
tend to get UTIs because they forget, as my mother did. My mother no longer felt the urge to go to the bathroom. And of course,
No.
she could not remember to go to the bathroom, right?
Right.
She could not remember that she had gone to the bathroom. And so it can bring on a sudden personality change with a person who's already got dementia. So try to figure out what's
What's
dementia,
happening?
what's
Yeah.
graduate. But
Right.
my mother-in-law was in her 90s, relatively healthy, walking in the mall, shopping with her friends from the assisted living where they had bussed them and fell down on the ground because she had a UTI.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
man.
She had no symptoms until it literally knocked her flat.
Yeah.
And the problem is, I had a UTI once many years ago, which I was on another drug, a muscle spasm drug, which masked the symptoms.
Hmm.
So I couldn't feel the bladder spasms because I was on this other drug.
Right.
And so it progressed to my kidney.
Oh dear.
And one
Gosh.
of the many risks of a UTI, it's your system, right? Urinary tract. So it will travel through your system and it will end up in your kidneys where you're in a whole lot more trouble. So, yeah. So it's back to the conversation we had before about information. Who wants to go talk to their friends about incontinence or
Right.
peeing, or I can't pee, or I pee too much, or it hurts when I pee? I can't imagine my mother being able to say to her friends, "It hurts when I pee." Here's a sad thing about my mother. Again, she got dementia, so this was part of it. When she would go in the bathroom, she would have what she would call like those old lady smells, right? And she would be embarrassed about that. So in her bathroom, she kept matches, old fashioned matches. So
Yep.
she would light a match so that that sulfur smell would mask her old lady smells.
Hmm.
That's how ashamed she was,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Uh,
think I'm really glad that times have changed and that, people are more comfortable, that we're comfortable having these conversations. My friends and I talk about all the things. I mean, we talk about poop more than I've ever thought possible. Like, like all the time we talk about everything about our bodies and what's happening, and I can't imagine not having that experience because it everywhere in our world and our culture we feel so alone and we feel like we it's so taboo to talk about things and it's so dangerous for us
Yeah.
to feel so isolated and not
yes.
realize that all the things that we're experiencing in our bodies, whether they're just like our friend or not, we're not the only ones. And
Right.
so talking to multiple people about it makes you realize that everything is normal, and it's very rare that you have something that nobody else has,
Mhm.
and that's super important, which also means there's treatments for it, or at least something,
Right.
but to know you're not alone and to not be afraid of talking about it. Get yourself friends who will talk about it. When
Right.
my friends message me and are like, oh my God, I just had explosive diarrhea. And I'm like, all right, great. Like, get yourself friends who will talk to you about that.
Yep.
Right. So then you say, well, I find Imodium is much more effective than like, Pepto-Bismol or whatever, right? You have a
Yeah.
whole pharmacy, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I know how to treat that, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this has been, you are so informative.
Yes.
I've loved everything you shared. It's been so great. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's
Well,
great.
thank you so much for coming and talking with us and sharing, and for being an advocate for women and talking about it to everybody all the time, because we need more women who do that, because you create a safe space for women around you
Yeah.
you
That's
know,
right.
that don't have
That's right.
somebody else or don't feel comfortable. They're like, oh, Kathleen is somebody I can talk to because you're the one sending them the links to things. You're the one saying things. And so
Right.
we need to become safe spaces for women so that they can then become safe spaces and it continues to grow.
Exactly.
So,
Right. And I appreciate all of what you're doing, Patty, and that you, as a woman in her mid 40s, have friends that are talking about this. Because I said this to you earlier, but we are here to save you and your friends. We are here to save you, your friends, and the women who are 10 years younger than you, who
yeah,
are still potentially going into perimenopause. Imagine being in your mid 30s. I mean,
yeah.
I got married at 34. I can't imagine trying to deal with perimenopause on top of all that kind of stuff, right?
Mm,
And so Jan and I said this before, we are reactive. We are trying to deal with what happens to our aging bodies because we didn't get treatment, right? I'm dealing with cardiovascular stuff now that I would probably not be dealing with had I been on hormones.
No,
Because it's one of the things
interesting.
it's one of the things that we know it helps with, right?
You
So
know what I call, Kathy, sorry for interrupting. What I call estrogen, it's the hormone of the goddess.
there you
You know,
go. I like
it's
that.
like
Yes,
it brings life. It makes us flourish and, full and
right.
abundance, and it's a kind of a trick. We get a whole bunch of it and then we're in reaction, and then all of a sudden it waxes and wanes, and then we don't get enough, and then we have a reaction. And I thought, whoever invented that.
But
Anyway,
right, but the purpose of that is in our age, Jen, right? We're no longer in our childbearing years. It's not our
true.
job to
Yeah.
to produce life. It's our job to raise the village. You are actually a grandmother, right?
Yes.
I nurture lots of people and I
Mhm.
mother lots of people and
Yep.
little people that biologically I did not bring into this world and I don't need to,
Yes.
right? So that's
I
our
like
job.
that.
But it would be nice to know that as estrogen ebbs and flows in our bodies, one, it has an effect. I'm not imagining it. And two, there are treatments if you want to use them. And
Exactly.
that's what we need to do. We need to be able to label our experiences and we need to be able to use our voice and talk out loud.
Yep.
And that's what you're doing with this podcast. And so I thank both of you for the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
thank you.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you like what you've heard, please share it with friends, subscribe, and leave a review.
And remember, information shared on this podcast is not medical advice. If you have a concern about your physical or mental health, please seek support from a professional.
If you have a story you'd like to share about things your mother forgot to mention, you can apply to be a guest.
We'd also love to hear a quick 90-second thing you've learned in your life.
You can find links to both of those over at our website at
thingsmymotherforgottomention.com or in the show notes.
Thank you.